Give it a shot. If it's not,
Safely down here.
Are you okay?
On Monday, I lost my voice.
Oh.
And then, and my voice comes back the sicker I sound. And the better I look too. So I was getting on the screen today because yesterday I did look terrible on the belly remote.
Much better.
Yes, thank you.
okay. Well, you ready?
Yes, sorry.
I will call the meeting to order of the Administrative Services Committee. We will start with roll call. Teresa?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
Pam?
Here.
And I'm here. The other three are not. Hopefully, oh, Terry's here now too. So we have 5. We have a quorum. I would first go to minutes for approval. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Pam, seconded by Matt. Is there any corrections or changes to the October 4th minutes? Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comment. I don't know if anybody signed it.
I don't believe so. When I walked
I
in,
don't
nobody
think
was
there's
there.
anybody in here that I don't recognize. Okay. There's nobody signed up for public comment. Member comments? Any member comments? No go at once. Okay. No presentations. New business is on the consent agenda. At 7.1, I'm polling. Is there anything else that people want pulled from the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, sans 7.1.
7.4.
7.4.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Terry.
I'm sorry, you pulled 7.4?
Yes, at the request of Mr. Hartman, actually. So he's going to have the floor next. Okay. Routine consent agenda item 7, everything except 7.4. Teresa?
Yes.
Yes. Terry?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Yes.
Pam? Yes. And I'll vote yes. Can I have a motion to approve 7.4?
I'll make the motion.
By Teresa, is there a second?
I'll second.
Terry, seconds. Mr. Harmon?
Well, good morning. For the record, Scott Hartman, Deputy County Administrator, and this is the time of year where we go through our annual insurance program. And I do appreciate you pulling this agenda because I want to focus in on one item in particular, which is a significant change from our program that we've known in years past. Before I do, just at a very high level, overall the insurance renewal and the insurance policies came in at a 16.2% increase over the expiring policies. And that is, so the budget that was presented to you a few months ago contemplated an 8% increase, so a little bit higher than we had anticipated. The net result is about a $100,000 shortfall from what the budget contemplated to what this is. At this point in time, I'm not asking for any additional provisions in the budget. We're going to endeavor to absorb that, and that's going to really be dependent on how our losses go, because we do budget an amount, a set amount for losses, and if losses come in lower, we can absorb that. If by mid-year or so we see that the budget is going to be impacted, I'll ask you for an emergency appropriation through the tort fund reserve. But at this point in time, I just wanted to let you know where we came in at. A little bit higher than expected, but you know, if you've renewed your insurance in the recent months, you probably saw an increase as well. So this is not entirely to be expected. A few of the pain points were really with regards to the excess policies, and they have over the past couple of years been increasing. And then we'll talk about workers' compensation specifically. Before I do, on the screen is Rich Stuckluska with Gallagher. Rich is our broker consultant and has been for, I don't know, about 9-10 years, and shepherds the county through the insurance renewal program. And Rich has been a member of this team, you know, like I said, for about 10 years now, really knows the county's plans and is on the front end of marketing the county's policies to various insureds and trying to work with us to get the the best program that's going to meet our needs, that meets our exposure, our risk tolerances, and ultimately at the best price. So Rich is here in case there are any questions on the other policies. And except for workers' compensation, it's generally a renewal of the policies. We do make a change to our excess carrier. We go to Arch from Allied, but the risk tolerances are the same. These are the amount of insurance coverage that we're buying and what we would absorb as risk versus what we would insure. So before I go into the workers' compensation program change, any questions? I see Member Altough has her hand up.
Go right ahead.
Average, this year it was 16.2% increase. What was it last year and the year before? And are we going to take that into account as we move forward with the budgeting process? I don't think it's unusual, mind you. I'm not stating that. I concur. In my business life, I've seen an increase sometimes up to 30%, so I'm not surprised. I just would ask if we've got a better average so that next time we budget more accurately.
Yeah, so last year, overall, the insurance program increased 14.7%. I don't have, actually, I can pull up, I think, the 2022 figure.
I guess my question is, do you think that you can manage the funds that are in that account, and that's why you did an 8% bump rather than, 10 or higher?
So when we go into this, and Rich can chime in as well, we confer with Gallagher, and they look at the trends in the market, because insurance does trend based on overall losses. Property insurance actually is another pain point that we're seeing that's an increase. And then they, based on what they're seeing with their clients, Rich says, okay, here's what we're looking at for an organization of this scope and scale with these types of exposures, and so we try to make a good educated guess going into the budget. And at that time, we were thinking it was going to be around a single-digit increase. But in a few months, the world can change, especially in the insurance world. And it just really with respect to the excess policy, it increased. Our property increased because of a couple reasons. Number one, our insured values really went up. We also brought on the public safety or the law enforcement training center, which was a significant increase. So there's some actually growth in that insurance policy just by nature of the county. So our values went up. Those in the construction industry know that construction costs have gone up, and those are a factor in the valuation of property. But bringing on an $8 million regional law enforcement training facility, which we now have to insure, since we're going to have the grand opening here in the next day, or in fact, it's today, isn't it? Yes. So we have to take that into account. So we do have some things that impacted. But to your question, we try to do our best. In some years, we've come in under, with what we predicted. Other years, we came in over. I think we do a pretty good job. We're not too far out of whack. And the budget tries to contemplate what that would be. But the intent going into this is not asking for more money today. It's trying to see how we can work with the budget to absorb it, and using the other funds that are set up for loss. Because when we budget, you'll see in the budget there's a loss fund that we put money into that covers all the settlements and the cost for defense. If our claims come in lower, then that money has a surplus. If they come in higher, we obviously have to come to emergency appropriation. We don't budget for worst case scenario. I could try to put in millions of dollars, but that's silly because we try to come up with a reasonable amount in that loss fund, and that's how I'm going to try to carry these insurance costs. But once again, I would ask for your forgiveness if mid-year I come in for an emergency appropriation because the numbers just didn't work out. But right now, we're going to take a wait-and-see approach.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're mitigating some of this 43% increase by Liberty Mutual because, as you said, bringing on the new training center, but we're mitigating some of that cost with our partners who are sharing this training center, correct?
That would be the cost share agreement, but that's not that's not going to take too much, and that's actually not going into the tort fund. That's more going into the operations and the cost share agreement.
So I think you're gently telling me no, we have not taken that into account. Well, the thing about it is, obviously, the sheriff's department, a few of these people should be let know of this increase because 43% is not a normal, that's a big bump.
Yeah.
And certainly, we can go back and ask our partners, or for the following year, we can ask our partners, because there's no reason that the county should take on this entire burden.
Yes, I agree, and that's something that I think we can visit on and talk to the partners and look at how the IGA is put together. At this point in time, that's not a factor into here, but I certainly think that's an important point, since they're using the facility and they have a certain stake in it as well.
So I think we need to make a point that we do pass this information along. Okay.
So I have a
Yes.
question. All
Go
right.
ahead.
Okay. So Scott, in the property, I mean, I think we all experienced it because Illinois was one of the top states in the nation last year for property tax claims. And as a business owner, what I had to do was adjust the type of insurance. I had to increase my deductible, look at everything. Have we done that?
We have not. We kept the same deductible of $25,000 under this program.
Okay, my personal business deductible is higher than that. And this is a county with a $200 million, we need to look at our deductibles.
Well, we could.
Okay,
We
could we do that?
Yeah, actually, Rich, I don't know if you took a note on that. What we can do is see what the other options are. We wanted to maintain that same $25,000 on property. That's.
Well, it makes sense though, that rather than you come back and ask us for $100,000 later on this year, our deductible could really go up to $100,000. Not realistically.
Right, and that's I think the appropriate point is really the risk tolerance, $25,000 and then we're out. But if you hire a deductible, I mean, you can erode.
My personal business has a much higher deductible than that also.
You can erode cost savings very quickly.
Yeah.
And a significant loss to a building is going to be far more than $25,000. But we can provide some options.
We can compare them up.
Let's look at that, yes.
Let everybody see what it's looking like. Okay. Any other questions?
I guess, to that point, how often have we had to claim on our insurance? Like yesterday, I found out that we had a bit of an issue between Valley High and DOT. So I assume that's gonna end up being that may end up having to have our insurance hit, right?
Maybe, right?
Right,
We gotta work
so-
out who's the responsible party on that.
True.
Yes.
But how often, like,
Fiber optic?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So how often, like, we don't get necessarily a report on how many times our buildings need to be claimed, right? Because that'd be too much reporting to us to give us the day in, day out.
So the question is, how often we make a claim on our property
Yeah.
insurance?
Yeah.
I would say, we probably maybe have a couple claims per year. It's not a lot and it's not significant,
Yeah.
but you're buying insurance for just.
True, but that's for the deductible.
Yeah.
So like if we're using our insurance because we have more, right, than like my house, I never make a claim on, but hopefully that stays true for this coming year as well. We don't want to hire deductible if we keep using it. So I guess how do we figure that out? Like how would we determine our likelihood? How do we want to go?
So what we've done is that we arrived at that number just because of some of the losses that we've had in the past. Unfortunately, we have a really good loss exposure, really good track record on our property. We're not making that many claims. The ones that we have, at 20, they've been under $25,000. We've been able to absorb that. I don't recall my tenure actually having to go in past the deductible on a. That's not true. Let me back that up. I think there was a claim that went through, but it really puts the county into the position of how much do we want to absorb and how much do we want to insure. The question is going to be what's the delta between an increased deductible and an increased premium,
Which
Right.
and that's I think
Correct.
what we need to bring back.
That's what we want to find out.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but to your point, we're not making a lot of claims. If we were, you'd see a much higher number on your renewal.
Right.
So,
We'll just pass the word to facilities management services.
And then I assume it was shopped.
yes.
Yes,
So,
okay.
yeah, and that's what Gallagher provides. They shop for insurance. So if there are any other questions on the program in general, happy to answer, or I'd like to move on just to workers' compensation. So McHenry County takes a hybrid approach with its insurance programs in general, and workers' compensation is along this line insofar as we do what's called a self-insured retention. We self-insure the first part of the claim, and then we have an excess policy on top that we would turn it over. The expiring policy, we would self-insure for a workers' compensation injury, the first $650,000 for all employees except law enforcement. And law enforcement, we're self-insured up to $1 million. So the first $1 million of a deputy injured on duty, the county would pay out. And that's that loss fund I referenced earlier. That's where that money comes from. The renewal changed that and said it's going to be $1.25 million for law enforcement, so it went up $250,000 of self-insured, and $100,000 for all other employees, up to $750,000. And there's going to be an increase. The increase was quite significant. With that, when I spoke of risk tolerances, that really put this program approach into question. Because, and I'm going to use the example, if there's a fatality of a deputy on duty and it's sudden, the dollars and cents, you're looking at about a $1.8 million, or 1.8 million amount of exposure, you know, give or take, depending on medicals. So we're going to pay the first 1.25 million of that. So in essence, we are only insuring $550,000 of coverage. Where previously we were insuring $800,000 of coverage. So you see how in 1 year, just the county's exposure changed. And you know, that is, workers' compensation is a really significant consideration in our insurance program because we have a lot of, a lot of high-risk positions. We've got good workers doing a great job, and and there's risk in the job that they do. Through law enforcement, through through all our various departments. And because of that, and because of the increase that was on top of that, Gallagher had approached a few others, but one of which was what's called Illinois Public Risk Fund, IPRF. And this is very common. A lot of municipalities use IPRF for their workers' compensation insurance. It is in essence a risk management pool, a workers' compensation risk management pool. And I'm just going to tell you flat out, the economics of this work out well. Every claim is a $500,000 deductible. So instead of paying $1.25 million, we're at $500,000 and we're out. The cost is a little bit more, but it's in consideration to what Safety National, our excess carrier, was providing. I think for buying that level of insurance, buying that additional coverage for actually what it amounts to about $20-some thousand more than Safety National, I think it's a no-brainer. The challenge, or not the challenge, excuse me, the change is rather than administering workers' compensation claims directly in-house, being on the front end, working with a third-party administrator, and having a very active role in workers' compensation claims, IPRF, now they take a lot of that on. So it changes how we really conduct business. Now, not to say that, was there no longer a role for the county in workers' compensation? Absolutely there is. We have claims that are going to continue on, which are called runoff claims. But any new claim, we're still going to have an active input. We're still going to be working. We have to process the claims. We have to file with IPRF. We have to work with the investigation, make determinations on compensability, whether or not is this an injury that the county should cover or not. So there's still a very active role. But the third-party administration, which we had a vendor for, that gets taken off by, and IPRF handles that. The claims determination, the defense, IPRF now handles. So they take a lot of that out, and we have pools for our health insurance, and so we have really good experience with pools. This is the time, based on everything, for staff to make a recommendation to our change in workers' compensation to move to IPRF. But by that, we lose a certain amount of control over the claim because we're basically handing off to them. And then if it's over $500,000, we're out, and then they take it on. If it's under, we're still going to pay, just like we would pay today. And I think for buying that additional coverage and where Safety National came in, this is the time to make that change. Risk management team had a really good conversation with the IPRF staff to understand how does this work. We like to have that control. We like to have not only how the claim is going to be administered, but Risk management's an internal service provider. When Sandy Salgado calls us to say, hey, we have a deputy that's out, what can we expect? When are they going to come back? Well, how far are they, how much, time are they going to be up? That's what we provide. So by keeping tabs on these claims, we provide that service to our departments and to the employee to ensure that the employees coach through what they need to do. Because our job is, if an employee's injured in a line of duty, it's our job to, number one, give them the treatment they need so they can get back to work. And number two, for the departments to ensure that they know where that employee stands and know what to expect and know when an employee will get back to work. I mean, that's a simple charge for us. Of course, if the claim doesn't smell right, it's our job to be good stewards of the public funds and investigate it and defend it and maybe deny that claim and put up a good defense to protect the county tax dollars. So that's what we do. But that internal service providing component is still going to be there. We were worried that we would lose it. But we're still going to have an amount of control, amount of touch with the claim. Obviously, we're still going to provide the service to the departments and the employees. But what this changes is what we do more in the internal workings of the claim, we let some of that go. And that's, it's different than what we do, but I think given the economics, I think it's the recommendation for the county moving forward. And so with that, I want you to be aware of this change and to have a deliberate discussion on it.
So I have a question. So who defends the claims right now?
So we have in-house counsel, or actually not in-house, we have external counsel that are appointed as special assistant state's attorneys by the state's attorney's office. And there's a firm there's two firms actually that we use depending on the claim, but they're workers' compensation attorneys. They specialize in defense. Okay.
And I assume these are the big ones, not the nuisance claims. These are
these are the major claims, the litigated claims. Actually, the firm that we use is one of their approved firms, and we said, can we still use this firm? Because we have some really talented attorneys that we like and that know us, and that's not going to change, which is nice. That was helpful. One of the things that we were really concerned about is over the years, and for the tenured members, but the new members, you might have heard this term before too, it's called pro se settlements. Over the past several years, we've really developed a change of the culture that an employee's hurt on duty, rather than running to an attorney, it's now known that because of what I said before about the risk management's duty and taking care of that employee, they're not running out to get attorneys now. Their pro se means that they're going to not get an attorney. They're going to go it alone because the county's been fair and reasonable and provided settlements that were usual and customary and what we can expect, and probably comparable to what an attorney could get them. So there's no reason for them to run out to get an attorney and have to go into the fight. That saves money for the county because we don't have all the defense costs. That's better for the employee because if they're entitled to a settlement, they're going to get that settlement. The attorney's not going to make a difference. And now they get to pocket all that money as opposed to forking some over to an attorney. So it really turns out to be a win-win. And then you have just that goodwill. Then you have that, the employees know that the county is their partner. We're here to take care of them, and we're not their adversary when it comes to a claim. It took several years to develop that, but we've reached that point, and I'm very pleased that we're there, where there's that trust. I was worried about if we lose that control, I bet you, are we going to jeopardize that program? And that was really important in our discussions. We walked away from our conversation with a sense that that's not going to happen. IPRF is really big on pro se settlements. They were tickled to death that we've developed that approach and that philosophy. So I think that partnership is going to work out very well, and we can continue what we've developed, that goodwill that we've built over the past several years.
I have 3 questions, if that's okay. What is the name of the firm that the county uses for the?
Nyam Bambrick.
How do you spell that?
Can I get that to you?
Yes,
it's
please.
NYHAM, and if you just probably Google that, you'll see Nyam Bambrick. And then Widener McAuliffe is the other firm that we.
Could you go ahead and send me that?
Yes,
contact?
we'll send those out.
Okay, that'd be great.
they add on the spelling bee there.
And then I'm relieved that we're going to this new process with the IPRF because we're not in the business of managing workman's comp claims, and they are very labor intensive and tricky, especially in this litigious culture. And the people that normally do that, that is what they do. And it can be a good cop, bad cop thing. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean protecting our, they're a third party, they're disengaged, they can objectively look at it, they're processing things through quickly. They can give you objective feedback on situations where you're outside of that. And so I've always done that. I'm in the labor business. So I'm really relieved to hear that. I was surprised that, I mean, that's a long time for us to be self-managing. So it's a great step forward, and it sounds like you've looked at everything and got it covered. So well done.
We tried to, thank you. But I will say, I think McHenry County Risk Management does a fantastic job managing workers' compensation claims. Yeah.
Of course, it's just, this is all that they do, and they actually earn a living at it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right.
So.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to go to a vote. Are we ready? Gloria?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Thank
That
you.
takes care of the routine consent agenda. Takes us to discussions. Fiber extension update.
That would be me.
Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I apologize for the narrative that I have, but it's been a lot going on, so I'm just going to go through it. Probably happy to answer any questions at the end. This is about the fiber optic broadband deployment project we've been working on. Illinois has unfortunately not announced round 3 award winners yet, but they continue to talk about the BEADS funding that's coming in 2024. BEADS stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. We've been attending several regular webinars with the state. They've informed us that they are finalizing statewide maps and confirming unserved and underserved areas of the state right now. We have been told that BEADS funding is going to be used to complete connectivity across the state. The state has identified 4.2 million broadband serviceable locations, or they're calling them BSLs, across Illinois. 3.8 million of those are considered served. 132,000 are underserved and 234,000 are unserved. The goal is end-to-end fiber, but the state has recognized that different technologies will be needed to connect the most remote areas of the state, so they're not planning to run fiber to every single spot or every corner anymore, but they're going to run fiber end-to-end where feasible, and then they're going to look at some wireless technologies fed by fiber on those other areas that are more remote. Excuse me. The Illinois Broadband Lab has reported over 200 applications totaling $1 billion in requests for round 3. The state currently has about $350 million to $400 million set aside for rounds 1, 2, and 3. However, the BEADS program is scheduled to give Illinois another $1 billion in 2024 for broadband deployment. As I said, the state is going through the MAP challenge process. What's interesting about that is the county is eligible to participate in the challenge process, and we're registering to do so. I'll be contacting the state about that actually later today. The state says the challenge process will start in January 2024. That's been a moving target for us. We've been told different challenge maps are coming out. We haven't seen any maps, we haven't seen any information, but the latest and greatest information is that January 2024, they're going to really open up this challenge process when the BEADS funding starts. As I said, the maps are going to be presented, challenged, revised, and finalized. The state is currently giving, the good news is the state is currently giving great deference to those who challenge the maps. So if we were to come in and say, we're missing something, you're missing something, they sustain it one of two ways. They contact the vendor and say, do you have service there? If the vendor doesn't reply, they add it to the list of, they add it to the list of unserved. If we can confirm in the field that there's nothing there, even though the vendor says, even though Comcast or whoever, I don't mean to name names, but says there is service there, they will still sustain our protest and they'll make sure that's added to the list. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I'm not holding my breath is the way I put it. As a reminder just to the board, the county's position has been that we're not planning to own or maintain a fiber optic network, but rather we're promoting universal access to fiber-backed internet. I understand it's frustrating at the pace of awards, but we really still believe this is a good problem to have. I know that was a lot, but with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. It's kind of where we are as of today. Please, Terry, yes.
Remember District 5.
I've got District 5. I've actually, as an example, Terry and I have been talking. She's got a few addresses she's identified. I will be specifically bringing those up. Some of them are on even unnamed roads, but I'll be bringing those specifically up to the state and say, we don't have service here. Where, as of right now, they don't recognize there is any service on the Illinois broadband map. So there's a few I'm looking at specifically, but we're looking very hard at this.
So I can just encourage the other board members to really look at these maps because they may not be
A wiggy.
accurate.
We're pleased to hear it's the first time, and this is just my opinion, and I hate to share an opinion, but it's the first time I've heard the state come up with a program that they're talking about where they actually seem to have enough money to carry forward what they're saying. They have, like I said, they have the 350 to 400 million now. They've received about 1.4 billion in requests. That's the amount of money they have or will have by next year. So like I said, cautiously optimistic. I keep my fingers crossed, but I'm not holding my breath.
And I guess my question would be, building on kind of what Ms. Reno talked about, is District 5, have we identified any other specific areas that we really, or is, I mean.
We're actually waiting to see their finalized map, and that's going to be
And
the
then
point
we'll
at which
go
we
ahead.
challenge. So
Okay,
I've got
guys,
some
I got-
addresses that we have right now, but yes, please, any addresses you have a question about, feel free to send them to me. We'll make sure they're part of the challenge process.
Well, we know in the west part of the county that there are some spots.
The entire western side of the county is
That's what I was
It's
going to
dead.
say.
lit up.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
That in part, the western, the north
Smoke
central
signals.
and down the western side of the county are particularly lit up on the states, and they're well aware that we have a lot of needs out there.
Okay, that's kind of what I was asking. Okay.
And I'm looking around realizing we don't have, we're kind of Crystal Lake southeast corner, we're not, although you're not Crystal Lake.
No, but I know I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about all along the river and down in some of those areas, right? I guess, you know, I mean, I'm not telling you how to do your job, but certainly through COVID, we can identify areas through the school systems that absolutely had no access to students because there was no internet. So, I mean, that should help us out a little bit, I would think.
It does. Those school districts have already supplemented any application to the state, and the state's, we know that there's several in McHenry County that the state's aware of. And the county has put a minimal amount of money aside, as we were asked to do by the state, to connect some government buildings to some of those remote areas where a lift station or a fire station might need something as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Potential election center facility.
Joe Terry, our
Joe.
county clerk, is going to join us in this discussion.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We just wanted to present you with something that we are looking at or working on, and hopefully you would consider the support and the need for an election center. If you see an election when it happens, this building gets, in essence, taken over because of the election process plus voting. And as elections have become increasingly long and the complexity is added to it, Joe will testify here that he's pretty much at his max capacity. So for that and for the disruption that it has on county operations and meetings and everything else, we almost reached the point where it's too much to handle. So we've been looking at an election center. We've been looking in specifically the Aldi building on Route 47, the former Aldi building, excuse me, by Planet Fitness and the Secretary of State's office. That's been vacant for quite some time. It's about a 16,500 square foot building. And it's a former grocery store, so it's wide open. And that would serve, I think, the election needs quite nicely for the county and for the county clerk's office. It's important to note when you look at an election, it's not as we are today because you don't see much activity, but we've got buildings full of all the equipment. That equipment needs to be stored, and he's got it stored in multiple locations. And then when the election comes in, the logistics to maneuver all that equipment to its appropriate polling place and to test it and set it up, and he can go into everything it needs to do. It is really a logistical nightmare. What this affords is a number of things. Number one, it relieves that pressure on the county operations and county facility by taking that election component out of this building and the other buildings and consolidates it. It improves the operations for the county clerk's office and their elections to set up, coordinate, to train, to do everything they need to do in connection with elections. plus serve as a centralized voting place, which this office would. And that location, as the former Aldi building, is still centralized to McHenry County. So it serves the needs. It gives him the ability then to have accounting rooms. You get public, the public availability to come in and look and watch counts and watch the election process in action. It checks a lot of boxes. In fact, I think just about every box that we would need out of an election center. But of course, there's a cost to that. This is a need. This is not something that we've been building up to this, and every year it's getting increasingly difficult. We're at the point where it's needed, and especially coming into a presidential election next year, it's going to be exacerbated. The former Aldi building is available. We've been working with the property owner and the city of Woodstock on what we would need to do. With rent, there's some build-out costs that would go into, which the owner would front a significant portion of that, but then there would be a county portion because you have the coolers that they have to take out to reconfiguration, building walls and offices and things that would configure that space to meet its needs. So I'm just going to give you a high level, probably all in, we're looking at about $290,000 thereabouts for rent a year. There's an upfront of about $85,000 to $90,000 county portion of build-out costs. And then we would have the operational costs. You have utilities and things like that. So we're looking at about the build-out cost of about $85,000 to $90,000 a one-time. And then we would have about a $400,000 per year approximate. These are back of the napkin numbers based on where things are at. Cost to operate that center for each year. So that's where we sit. We certainly wanted to open this up to you to let you know we're looking at it. The county clerk will express to you the need. We do have an obligation to ensure that the county clerk can perform his statutory duties, and we're getting challenged to do that. And every year, as additional mandates are put on the county clerk's office regarding elections, it makes it increasingly more difficult. This solves that problem not only for the county clerk to run the elections, but also too for the county in general to get back our facilities, to avoid a disruption, to stop employees from having to take their break, in some conference room that we have to set aside, and I think it really just, it brings back that normalcy that we need to the county operations. As you know, going through county board meeting cycles, we're tight for even county board committee meeting space because of elections. It's so challenging. We'd like to present that to you. We'd like to move forward with that. We're certainly asking for your support. It is a need for the county, and this is, I think, an ideal solution to solve that need. There's a cost, and I think County Administrator Austin and I are working on a way to help offset that cost. We know that that's certainly something that weighs heavy on the county board mind, but we know that that is a part of your consideration, and that will be forthcoming as well. So with that,
if I could just add a little context, if I could, just to give you some insight into what goes on behind the scenes during an election. As Scott referenced, we, starting about 3 or 4 months before the election, we start occupying more and more of this building. And some of that you might be aware of, but it starts with the cafeteria and the adjacent conference rooms there. And then by election day, it is all of that, plus these 2 rooms. In 22, we actually had the finance suite of offices as well. 108, D or C, whatever, a good deal of the foyer and part of the hallway, not to mention the basement, another building, and this is all occupied. So when we have, as the elections continue to get more and more complicated and things like vote by mail increase, it increases our demand to the extent we have storage containers out behind the building right now to accommodate what's going on. We, again, to give you some context, during an election, before election day, we will ship 12 to 16 moving trucks of equipment and materials out to polling places. Those are loaded by and large by our people, and the nature of how those things get to the places so that they can be assembled and loaded. I mean, it's a Herculean task. I mean, there's a good week. We tell new prospective employees that you're going to have a couple weeks a year where you feel like you've had a workout because you will have had a workout. And we joke that the application says that you may have to lift 25 pounds, and the fact is you will lift 25 pounds 600 or 700 times probably each election season, because we have things stored here, we have things stored here. Those things have to go here to be configured and then taken back, and then the next set of them have to be brought up here. We rely on the elevator, which is notoriously unreliable. That has led to injuries and other, you know, the nature of just having to move this into physical labor has led to some injuries that were minor, some, most thankfully, that were minor.
If I may, we had one workers' compensation injury directly related to the election equipment in this building, over $100,000.
Yeah.
So there's real money attached to this, and
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, and if you're wondering, is this a uniquely McHenry County scenario? It's not. DuPage County recently, they took over just for storage a huge warehouse. Kendall County is in the process of building an entire new building for the clerk, and I think it's about 9,000 square feet. They're about half our population. So this would give this building back to the people who currently inhabit it, and create a place where we could do our work more efficiently, more effectively, give greater access to the public, and do it all far more safely.
And the Clem building, which is when you pull onto Ware Road, there's a building right off of 47, which is used for elections. That building then comes back to the county, and we were going to look at that for repurposing. And one of the thoughts is to move our Office of Specialty Courts, which is between the Treasurer's Building and the Workforce Network Building, across from the Government Center. We pay about $38,000 a year in rent for that space. So this creates an opportunity then to look at maybe ending that lease and moving it over to to a county property. So it opens up opportunities for a greater for the county's use, and it can help offset some of those costs.
Okay. Will you be able to itemize like we've mentioned, we're renting the storage containers, we have the space that we're renting, the productivity of the staff being logistically disjointed, things like that, and so that we can see what the actual net increase in cost will be. For all we know, it could be a wash.
Yeah, it could be, and I think the other part of it too is as we become a society that more and more relies on vote by mail, moving and managing the material and the people and the equipment related to that becomes really a critical point on the critical path, because we are at a point, and because we have very strict timelines when we can do the work. 9 women can't have a baby in a month, right? And so we're at a point where if we got a big influx, I just don't know how we'd end up.
And to that point, with the vote by mail, there's a machine that the clerk's office uses, affectionately called Big Al. It's probably, I would say, from Member Altoff to about me long, right? That processes the vote by mail ballot as that initial processing. Joe has expressed a need for possibly a second one of those, because, and we don't have a place to put it. We don't, because it's not a machine that you set up and you can move around. You set it up and it's there. What this new election space does is give the opportunity, and it's already contemplated, that you could have that second Big Al in there. And if vote by mail becomes so prolific in that stage, which you anticipate that to be, we would be hard pressed to find then another location just for that second piece of equipment that would be needed to process all the vote by mail ballots.
And that one piece of machinery is equivalent to about 80 people's worth of work during an election.
Will this constitute an actual central hub then? We won't need these other storage containers? This will literally pull everything to one place?
Yes, and so from a security perspective too, that's really appreciated.
Have we
It's hard to
looked
manage.
at any other buildings? I'm assuming you have. This one is just the most idyllic for you.
We definitely have, for a number of reasons. Some of them were really dilapidated, some of them were in less than accessible places. We also want this to be where we do training and as a polling place. So right now, we engage oftentimes churches that have large spaces and the county college and that sort of thing to do training in. So we can do that training in here with the equipment without having to, again, pick it up and move it and take it somewhere else and then take it down and bring it back.
And then obviously with a commercial lease, that we would take over the maintenance after the initial point of them removing what they want, right? So facilities maintenance here would be responsible for that, maintaining that building also. Interiorly, I'm talking about, yes, anything that you need done inside. And as I remember, and I could be wrong, but this building's been up for sale or lease for quite some time.
Lease
For a lease for quite some time. So it would seem to me to make this more palatable for the board, myself, and all of our constituents, maybe we should negotiate harder on the initial serve of the lease, that the price be cut by what we have to put into it to serve your needs. And then, of course, subsequently, we would pay the full lease years afterwards.
Well, that's already, I think in our preliminary discussions, that's how we would approach it. The owner would contribute about 1.65 million into the building. Excuse me, 165,000.
Oh, no.
165,000.
Yeah,
Wow, we just built it right.
Yeah, let's go.
165,000
Sell my building.
into the building, and then, then there would be as much as the
Okay,
county would
but
have.
again, my ask would be that the lease price that we negotiate for however many years or terms on the first year would encompass our costs to be in using the building to Joe's specific need.
Yeah. And that's how we would set it up. That's why the county would pay an upfront cost for its share of the improvements. So it's not baked into the lease thereafter. So it's one and done.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the county to not pay for its share of improvements. That's what I'm asking you.
I'm sorry, so
That the county not pay for its share
for
of
anything.
improvements initially. They set up within reason. I'm not talking about desks and chairs and specific
Right.
office needs. I'm talking about whatever the building needs. I've worked in lots of commercial buildings, and I know what a grocery store is. It may be idyllic space for him, but it's not idyllic needs in a grocery store, unless we're gonna run everybody down aisles, so.
And I just want to sure I understand. So you would prefer that the lease, all the cost of improvements, the county share be absorbed into the lease thereafter?
Year one, it be absorbed into the lease.
Oh, I see, okay.
And then after that, we would pay the full lease price. That way we know, as a board and everybody else, that this costs us XX dollars per year to have Joe in here. And it's not changed or vacillated on that first year based on interior priorities. Any more than Joe should need to get himself in and set up in the door and move all of his parts and pieces into there. And if it's done, facilities maintenance ends up with a building that's complete.
We've not finalized negotiations yet, so we could incorporate some of your ideas.
I just thought it's more palatable us in year one than to look at putting, and you know how these numbers work at 85 to 95 ends up being 100 for us on top of that first year's lease cost.
Well, and that's, and the $165,000 owner share, that in essence is $10 per square foot that they would contribute. And then the difference between what we would need for improvements, that's that delta then of what the county would pay. We're going off estimates. The nice thing though is the owner would be doing the improvements, not the county, so he would, they can take advantage of some better pricing than we would.
That's my big ask, is that this be done on the outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanna be real clear though. We haven't finalized this Aldi option, not with the owner, nor with the city. The city has to make some adjustments on their zoning to allow this, and there's some questioning out there whether this is going to be finalized. That's why there is no agreement in front of you today. We just aren't there yet. I thought it was important that you be introduced to this subject and this need that the clerk has and this solution that we're trying to identify. But it won't be until the earliest next month that we have any sort of agreement in front of you.
Pam, did you have a question?
I would just ask, just listening to all of the questions, and I'm going to assume ultimately this will also go in front of finance. But
Yes.
I would love to see, again, for this and any kind of projects, whether it's Aldi or whatever, an analysis of our savings, what we're expending now, what we're going to save, and the cost of the new project. Just so that we, when we go back to our constituents, can say we made this decision based on this. If that's possible.
The other question I have is for the primary, when do you start setting them for the primary? So like, I know the primary is in March.
Yeah.
When do you start? Is this for the primary or is this for the November election?
So we won't have I don't think there's any way possible we could have this in place for the primary.
Yeah.
Because we've already started work for the.
Right, that's what I assumed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We start taking over space in the building next month.
Right, yeah, I know,
Yeah,
yeah. I was thinking, I'm like, we're getting very close.
Yeah.
So this is for November, so you would be looking at the center set up by
It would be ideal if we could get it mid-year,
June.
Yeah, June, July. And in terms of our needs, what we really have outlined in a cocktail napkin sort of way is really just flat floor space. It's fairly austere, concrete floors and break rooms, bathrooms, and a couple office spaces. But it's not a palace to elections. It's a very simple industrial sort of thing that we're looking for.
Just need that number.
I just have a few questions about logistics. So, like hours of operation, would that allow us to have, some longer hours of operation? Or would it still be like 8:30 to 4:30, the hours that are here?
I think in terms of when some of the clerk's office will still be here and they'll still be operating. So if you want a birth certificate, marriage license, that's all going to be standard hours of operation. What's going to be there is election operations, and so that would follow a statute primarily, and then resource availability in terms of getting people to work for hours, and that would be a lot of that is training. So sometimes we're open, we conduct training on Saturdays, evenings, and so on and so forth. So it gives us that flexibility without having to scour the county to find a place that'll have 80 people in the room at 7 o'clock on a Thursday.
Okay, so for instance, when early voting begins,
Mm-hmm.
and that those hours are basically all day,
Mm-hmm.
will the county employees that are currently working on that, will you have a different set of employees, or so how does
So
that work?
so when it becomes early voting, the people who tend to the early voting, those are not employees, those are
But
judges.
and
So
poll watchers.
and poll watchers and so on and so forth. So there's
So
beyond the initial setup, which oftentimes happens before and after normal work hours, it certainly gives us the ultimate flexibility because we don't have to rely on the availability of this room, for example. And no offense to you guys, you have a meeting here,
Right.
and we can't come in until at 10 o'clock when you're done be set up for the next day's,
So I'm trying to understand, so getting all of the materials over there
Mhm.
would be done by the county employees to get everything set up and ready to go?
Yes,
And then during the hours of operation, you would have your election judges and poll watchers,
right.
and they're basically running the
They're
show?
running the show.
Okay.
We're accessible at any time, but we are not involved.
Okay, so if there are, I'm just thinking about what will their accessibility be to records that are here? Like with the interface with computers, like if there's something going on over there that they need to access county records here.
That
It's
isn't
not
an
gonna be
issue,
an
no.
issue.
No, what we outfit them with, regardless of where they happen to sit, has access to all the information that they need to make decisions and execute their duties as a judge.
Okay, so I have an example.
Okay.
So, for instance, my name has been wrong on my voter registration for a long time. There's a space between Van and Hoff.
Sort of like that, on your card?
Yes, yes. It should be like that.
Oh, it should be like that?
It should be like that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, but for the longest time,
Mm-hmm.
there was a space, but Van, they were looking at that as my middle name, and
Oh.
Hoff as my, and so every time I would go to vote, they couldn't find me. So I would show them my voter registration card, and then they would locate.
Right.
So I think it was actually in 2022, I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go down there and find out why this is happening.
Sure.
Because I didn't know why it was happening.
Yep.
And that's what I found out it was. They had Hoff as my
As your
name.
last name.
But when they saw the,
Yeah.
so I was able to go down the hall and get that straightened out here.
Mhm.
So we won't have that ability to do that kind of thing now.
Right, but in the same way that you couldn't do it in the polling place in this room, you had to go
I had
down
to
the
walk
hall,
down the
you'll have to
hall.
go down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, as we're looking at the numbers and everything, it is the business of your office to do this. It is your objective, purpose, part of your purpose for being.
Right,
So, there you go.
yeah.
Doing it well, all right.
If you look at my track record in terms of my spending, I have done my very best to minimize my financial impact on this county, and it pains me, but on the other hand, we're coming to a point where we just have nowhere else to go, is really what it comes down to.
Oh, and how many square feet again, you said?
16.5.
16.5?
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to reinforce what Matt was saying. If they took that 95,000 off the first year lease and got it down to 196,000 for the first year, that would be good, because whoever is leasing this and they have vacant property, this is a windfall to them. So, low traffic,
Yeah.
it's very desirable. So,
Primarily a storage facility for us.
Yeah, it looks a lot like a storage
So
facility.
no wear and tear on their building, no wear and
Right.
tear on their parking lots. It's a good deal if they would come our way a little bit.
Great.
But again, as Pete said, this is in early stages. So
Yes, very much so.
it just, obviously, when it's all gray for us, it's hard to make a definitive answer either.
Yeah, this is more.
Fully in support of it, but let's see numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that,
That's what we want to hear.
Right,
is that amount, is that triple net? Is that all in on the 295?
That's triple net.
So we still have CAM?
But that's gonna be built into the lease house, but the CAM, the property taxes, that's gonna be included in that high-level number. It's, you got the lease rate, there's a CAM rate. And then-
Okay, that's a combined rate. Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
thanks for having us.
We'll see you in another month.
Yep.
Thank you.
Program evaluation. Come on up.
Me?
Whoever's doing program evaluation, they don't say
County
here.
coordinator.
Nobody told me. County coordinator.
Yeah.
County coordinator, hello.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you. So Pete told me to give you an update of the past year and to talk about the upcoming year. So I have 2 pages of notes, and I'll probably miss a lot of the things in there, but,
So send them to us as a report after would be just fine.
what's that?
Send us your notes afterwards, or give us a
I can do that.
report
I can
afterwards
do
so we
that.
can have it.
You know, I want to thank you guys again for the opportunity to kind of bring together this partnership with the Council of Governments and through the county coordinator position. A couple weeks ago, Pete met with our, the COG Executive Committee to kind of do a review of the program, and they had all positive comments to say about the partnership. I think it really adds value to the COG and the municipalities. We've heard a lot of great things from the municipalities, and they're just thrilled that they're working together, they're working with the county, and that everybody is supportive of it. So I just want to say thank you for that. You know, looking back at 2023, we had a lot of exciting things that happened, of course, and I know that you're well aware of a lot of those things. But, you know, one of the first things that I really want to talk about is something we started off the year with, and we just recently had, where we brought together the city managers. And Peter was in the meeting, and you know, we bring the city and village managers together every quarter, and they really find value in those meetings. And our last meeting was in October, and we had 3 different departments from the county that were there to present information to the city managers, and they were really thrilled about that. We had Adam Wallen talking about a building inspector, possible building inspector program that we could work together with the municipalities. Melissa Adamson was there to talk about the community health survey that is going on through the health department, and also with the overdose mapping that they're looking to engage the municipalities with. And then George, I'm not going to pronounce his last name correctly, from the state's attorney's office was there to talk about the police body camera storage contract that the state's attorney's office just signed. So all of these were very important to the municipalities, and all opportunities that they could collaborate with each other or with the county on. And the county was looking for, you know, partnership in a lot of these programs. So, you know, the city and village managers meet about every quarter, but I thought this last meeting was the true way to showcase how the partnership is happening. So in addition to that, you know, over the last year, we've been working on legislative issues. In February, we went to Springfield with Chairman Bueller and about 9 or 10 mayors, or I think it was about 10 mayors that were down there as part of the COG. And we had a very successful trip down there. We got a lot of work done. And one of the things that really sticks out is in one of our meetings with legislative leaders, they looked around and they said, we've never seen where a county board chairman is here with a group of mayors and you're all speaking with a unified voice and you're all advocating for the same thing, and it was really great to hear. And I think it stuck with all of the mayors too, that we really as a county need to work together, especially in Springfield, because that's how we're getting things done. Of course, we have our issues that pertain only to the municipalities or issues that pertain only to the county, but there's several issues that cross over, and I think it really showed that we were collaborative and working together, and that stuck with us, and I think it stuck with a lot of the legislators too. So, you know, after that, after we went to Springfield, I immediately went over to the ILCMA conference. I was chosen for a scholarship from the National Association, the Illinois Association of County Administrators to attend that conference. There was no cost to me, which that was a great honor to be able to attend the ILCMA conference. But at that conference, I was able to meet several people and talk about what we're doing here in McHenry County with shared services, which is a great opportunity. Also at that conference, I met a gentleman named Jarrell Blakely, who is a student at NIU, who showcased the shared services that the county is doing through his capstone project. So it was our first of many meetings with him to talk about how we're working together with the municipalities. So my point is people are really paying attention to this, and we're trying to get this out in the community as much as we can because people are very interested in learning more about how we do this. So. Just things that I've been working on over the past year. One of the highlights was the McHenry County Municipal Partnering Initiative. They meet every other month. We currently have 16 joint purchasing opportunities available at this time. There's 50+ members of that group, and it is growing. Every time we have a meeting. I have to add more people on there. We're engaging more park districts, more townships, school districts, and all of these groups are interested in taking part in these joint purchasing programs. We had our first annual expo in September that was well attended. Adam was able to speak there about the county's purchasing program, and then we also heard from a couple other counties about their CDL training. So that was very successful, and we hope to have that every year. One of the big questions I get every year is, how much is the MCMPI saving the municipalities? And it's really hard to quantify that number. We know economies of scale with more people are going in on a contract that will lower the price. But one of the things that we're really noticing is staff time, is that if Crystal Lake is doing a winter tree trimming contract, through me, I can help facilitate getting other entities on board, and that frees up their staff time from having, it frees up Carrie's staff time having to do a winter tree trimming contract. So there's a lot of different ways to quantify the savings for that program, but it continues to grow, and it's one thing that I look forward to building in 2024 as well. The emergency, I worked a lot with EMA on their hazard mitigation update, or the plan update. In the past, they had some issues engaging municipalities. So through working with the EMA, I was able to get most of the townships and municipalities on board with that plan throughout the years. So they were able to be a part of that plan, and then that would open them up for assistance in the future should they ever have a disaster or need for that funding. I have a few other things listed here. The Workforce Housing Task Force that you'll hear about more. I'm proud to represent the municipalities on that. We've had some really great meetings every month. Last month we had 2 mayors that joined the group to talk about their challenges within their communities. So I look forward to continuing working on that. The Council of Mayors and the PTAC Committee, which is Public Transportation Advocacy or Advisory Council. I am on those groups representing the municipalities. For anyone new here, I used to work out at the DOT as the planning liaison for the Council of Mayors. So it's nice to be more involved with that, and I look forward to being more involved with that in 2024 too. I know Peter would be remiss and mad if I didn't mention our ICMA annual conference that we presented at in Texas. We were honored to be chosen to present about the McHenry County Coordinated Investment Study and our Shared Services Program. We had a lot of great questions. There was one gentleman in the front row that kept asking a lot of questions. After the fact, we found out he was from Cook County. And he was like, I don't think this would really work in Cook County. And I was like, you know, but it planted the seed for what we're doing out here. And it got a lot of wheels turning, I could tell, at least in his head. So that was nice to have that conversation with him. Legislative work, of course, we'll continue doing that in 2024. Paid leave for all. I am feverishly watching my phone as we speak, as there's only 2 more days left of veto session, and we're hoping something will happen with that. LGDF, any sort of legislative issues, we're happy to partner with the county on with those. The police social worker program, the regional training facility, getting municipal buy-in for those programs. One other quick thing I want to mention is the GIS consortium. I probably mentioned this last year, and this is something that is continually moving forward kind of behind the scenes. We have a pilot program with Woodstock and Wonder Lake, 2 vastly different communities, one more established and one that is continuing to grow. So we are working with those communities to update their GIS and see if there's a way for us to collaborate with the county and save them money so they're not paying outside consultants for the same materials that we already have. Finance directors, I plan on bringing that group together again in the spring. I had a great meeting with the state treasurer's office last week, and they have a lot of great programs that I'm excited to share with the finance directors. Township supervisors, I believe they are having one of their first meetings in the recent past tonight, or last night. But that's a group that I think is going to be really important to engage in 2024, just because we haven't had much access to the township supervisors in a couple of years. So I think it's good to get back with that group. So I probably missed several things, but I've just been so busy with what's going on. But I think all these programs are important, and I'm always looking for new ways that the municipalities are looking to work together or collaborate, or ways that the county is looking to get information out. So I'm just happy to keep doing this. So.
Go ahead.
I think you do a phenomenal job, Shannon. I mean, truly. However, I'm going to ask one huge favor.
Yeah.
Peter, this is for you too. At every single time you present, and at every single time someone comes up and asks you for more information, you must say, as you move forward, give us our due and our credit. I am furious that the state of Illinois provided monies for social work programs to 3 major entities in the state of Illinois and ignored us because we were so far ahead of the curve. I just want everybody to give us the due that we deserve by doing these kinds of programs. And then other people, obviously, the best form of flattery, right? Imitation, copying, absolutely. However, ask them very kindly, somewhere, in anything that they do, that they give us the due that we deserve for copying what we've already initiated. I think we got truly slammed on that award, $10 million, and we get nothing. I'm angry. So please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Terry.
So I very much appreciate your work for the county, and I think that you are doing a fantastic job. I was wondering, in my talking with others through the county, that there seems to be some issue with like smaller entities or the ones that are more volunteer in so taxing districts like school districts, libraries, fire districts. It seems to me the more that they're have a volunteer organization and not so much this is their primary job, the less they're really able to dial in to what the county can do for them or how shared services can work for them. Do you have, or do you think there's time in your schedule to think about ways to reach out and get them more engaged with with McCog?
Sure.
Because also, I mean, most of my interactions with McCog is going to the dinners, which I appreciate. But I know it's like there are municipalities that don't come, and they seem to be missing out on what they could get from this. And I don't know how you can get them more engaged when they have been reticent to engage. I'm sure that you reach out to them saying you reached out to the ones who are the most engaged, right? So I don't know how you can do it, but it seems like there's a hurdle there, and they're the ones who need the organization the most, right?
Sure, I completely agree with you, and a lot of this is word of mouth, and I try to get the information out there, but I'm going to use Algonquin Township as an example. Chairman Bueller had a conversation in passing with one of the staff members there and gave them my information, and they called me, and it was kind of just a cold call of, hey, and I was able to tell them kind of everything they were missing, you know, and long story short, I think Adam helped them get on a waste hauler contract, you know. I think it's just spreading the word and getting out there in front of them more, and that's one thing I'm excited about with the township supervisors. I haven't been in front of the township supervisors in years, and I think there was just never a group to bring them together. And McHenry Township Supervisor Gary Barla said, I'm going to get the township supervisors together. They're having their first meeting this week, and he said, I'm going to bring you in beginning of the year, and we're going to talk about all the opportunities that they're frankly kind of missing out on by not being more involved. So I agree. I think we need to engage them more.
Can you remind me, how long has this, are you the first one to be out of this? And how long has this been going on? How long is our program?
3 years, I think.
So it is, you're as new as I am to the. Right. So, well then good job, because you're really doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, we started in December of 2020.
Oh,
so which actually was.
So did I.
Oh, perfect, yeah, it was perfect timing, so.
Any other questions? Thank you. You are doing a great job. Electric vehicle infrastructure report.
Good morning. I'll roll this up into the capital report as well because they're interconnected.
And they're also right next to each other on our list, on the right hand.
So this summer, this year, we spent time looking at all of our facilities as far as capacity of power that we have at the buildings to redistribute either soon or in the near future to support the electrification of our fleet. And so it's a bit complicated in that in some instances we have the power, but we don't want to take that much power from the facility because we won't have capacity to move forward with any other improvements that the facility might need. So we looked at this and compared bringing new service to the facility, bringing new service to the ground to support electric vehicle charging stations, or can the building have enough, does it have enough spare capacity? A challenge out of the three that we focused on, Government Center, Administration Building, and McDOT. McDOT has probably the largest challenge in that they would like to, in the future, move some of their larger vehicles to electric. That's today's view. Obviously, these things change as time goes on. So our first step into this will be at this facility, at the Administration Building. We have the capacity here. We're still working with ComEd to see if perhaps they can offset some costs or help us with some of these costs. But what I have here is some order of magnitude pricing. So to 2025, our plan was to rehabilitate this parking lot. It needs new surface, it needs some curbs, it needs sidewalks, it needs work. It's time. So with that, it's a perfect opportunity to also bring in this infrastructure for electric vehicles. So we're going to roll into 2024 civil plans for bidding the work to update the sidewalks, paving surfaces, et cetera, and to distribute 18 charging stations onto the rear of the facility, either on the east side of the parking lot or the west side of the parking lot. That gets determined once we have a civil engineer involved and we do some programming with the users of these vehicles, what makes the most sense. Logistically, cost-wise, it's not a big difference between either end of that. So the cost to order of magnitude pricing to add these 18 stations into this building will be in the neighborhood of $450,000 or $23,000 per station. When we step back and we look at, oh, I put in a charging station in our garage and it only cost me $5,000. Yes, or $3,000. Yes. In this instance, we have standalone charging stations that have software that support the billing of that back to the county into the finance system. More durable charging stations that have quicker capacity to charge than residential. And obviously these are order of magnitude costs. This is rolled up civil engineering. It has the equipment, the software, and the distribution of the electric to these locations. As the plans are developed and competitive bidding takes place, the real cost of this will emerge from that. Government Center to add 34,000 or 34 charging stations. We're looking at just under $1 million. That we would look at probably staging that to say we'll put the infrastructure in and start out with half of that, 16 or 17 stations with the infrastructure ready to go for the additional as the vehicles become ready to buy. So when Adam has a fleet plan that says, well, we're going to be replacing these vehicles in say 26 or 27, and we will plan today is to replace them with electric vehicles. As we get closer to that, the infrastructure would be in place, and then additional costs would then be incurred to. So this 900,000 says we're gonna put 34 in and we're gonna fully develop them into charging locations. That's probably not what we're going to do, but we're looking at order of magnitude to try to just get the cost last. McDOT is looking at 46 stations, so all of their light-duty pickup trucks that run around vehicles, plus the trucks inside their barn. And for that, we're looking at about $1.5 million. When do we do that? Right now, we're looking at designing at least the infrastructure side of it in 2025, with it installing some of it in 2026. So 2024, we plan on working on this building and having the installation take place with the installation of the pavement in 2025. 2025, we're looking at McDOT and the Government Center for infrastructure design and installation, at least to some level. So that's the order of magnitude. We targeted, say, 50 locations at the Government Center initially, and we have costs to do 50 locations. We don't know how quickly we're going to need those. We don't want to overbuild, but we don't want to wish we had extended our infrastructure further along, only to come back and duplicate some of those costs to get power to the areas that it will be needed in the future. So that's where we stand with that. Sheriff's training facility in Cary, firearm training facility. As we know, the foundation walls are poured up to the roof deck. So it's pretty impressive foundations or foundation system there. So all the shooting range portion of the building is poured cast in place walls that go up to a plus 16 feet height or 18 feet height. If you were to drive out there and see this huge foundation wall standing up on the property. Right now, the concrete block assemblies are going on to the administration or the light training side of the building. And those two are going up to that elevation, and then the roof will be installed. So roof blocking is going on the concrete side. Masonry is going up to this elevation so then that the roof can go on. I think right now the date is April. We were holding on to December for the longest time. And now the date looks like it will be April. Jail chiller pre-purchase and installation. Right now we're out to bid for the installation component of that project. We bought the chiller this summer and we're going to install it in the spring. And right now purchasing has a request for proposals out or a bid out for the mechanical side of that. Valley High Memory Care Wing, well, that has particular interest this week because of the accident that occurred at 4:30 on Friday with the last boring of a caisson. So there's unsuitable soils on this area that the extension of the building is going into, and the solution for this was to core holes and use a rammed gravel technology, basically putting caissons underneath the footings. The contractor was to provide private utility locate to show anything that wasn't a Julie locate, and they missed this fiber that was hit with the last hole on Friday afternoon. IT did a fantastic job with getting on it and getting this repair secured over the weekend. 700 lineal feet of boring went from the Valley High property under Heartland Road and into the McDOT facility and up and over and down into their server area, as well as into the Valley High property. So by Monday morning, we had connectivity. So the response was very well coordinated by IT, and our contractor was aware of our response. So now we are at the who's paying for it part. So the cost is $60,000. That's what the contractor charged for this work. That includes the horizontal boring, the new fiber, the landscape restoration, et cetera, et cetera. Terminated, fibers lit up, go into work on Monday. McDOT can continue to operate as if, although some are a bit scarred for time because it was an abrupt fiber termination when it happened. It wound up into the auger of this machine, and then when it snapped, it made a bit of a racket in the McDot. I think Scott Henning was it, and none of us thought that this was going to happen. So right now, had the contractor said, hey, we picked up this fiber, we're going to relocate it, it's going to cost this. What would that cost have been? Well, right now, we don't have a cost for that because we didn't do that. We cut it instead, and now we have an emergency cost. So, in thinking through, should we participate at all in this cost? That's a question that we'll get the state's attorney's opinion on as we move down the road. The contractor's aware of it, hasn't said, I'm not going to participate, but of course is hedging on it. As a business owner is trying to say, hey, you would have paid to move this had we located. And he's right, we would have, but we didn't. So right now, not to offer it, I'm going to request a proposal from a local electrical company to say, hey, we're considering redundancy from Valley High to McDot. What would you charge us for 700 lineal feet of horizontal bore? So if we get to a point where we're having to negotiate, because we don't want to stop the project where he says, hey, okay, we're pulling out of here until we get this settled. I'd like to have that number. What is it? I'm not going to offer that number, but I'd like to have it as part of the world we live in, the strategy of just being prepared should we need it.
So this is good news because we heard yesterday that it was going to cost an estimated $70,000.
Right, yes, I know.
So this is
That's how things work, yeah, make things.
So little less.
What a difference a day makes.
Yes.
And so I think that's a logical way to look at this. If they had done their due diligence and located that fiber and said, we located this fiber here where we're going to dig, you need to move it.
Right.
Get the cost for what it would have cost, what, $5,000, $10,000?
Well, no, it would have been more than that.
What would it be?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not going to speculate.
So that's what you're
I
going
would
to get.
say it would probably, if we paid 60 because, hey, pull everybody out, we need this done this weekend. I would assume we paid double what we would have paid for that. It would be my assumption that it would cost something in that terms, rather than getting a local company in to say, hey, no pressure, we can do this next week, we can get this done. But I don't really know.
But see, there are additional costs though, because we were out of service and, there was
The
that.
cost would have gone only up had we not gotten it done this weekend. McDot would not have been able to operate.
Right.
The public would not have been able to communicate in and out of McDot in the way that they're accustomed to.
Yeah.
So yes.
And was it part of that cost because they had to do it on the weekend?
Oh, absolutely.
So
Typically, you would think about 30% premium for overtime work.
right.
In this instance, you get the phone call and say, hey, we need this done, and we need it done now. Yet 30% becomes, so they use, the company that did the work is using a pre-formatted price structure that they produce from Kane County, ask for what emergency response costs would be to do work like this. So they have a pre-formatted pricing schedule that's what they worked off of. So that's where we're at with that today. Likely to change as time goes on. Exactly where it will land, I am not sure.
To be continued.
Find out.
We will find out, yes.
This will not be the first time or the last time we hear about this.
So other projects recently completed, we got the Valley High kitchen flooring project wrapped up. Yeah, looks great. We pulled all the equipment out, got it all cleaned. Valley High staff took that element on. We disconnected all the appliances, moved them into a storage area in the building, and put new epoxy flooring. That flooring is a very nice product. It should last the county 25 years plus. It's a nice project, a nice product that went down. Looks great. So that's out of, that's complete. Archive storage rework, next week we'll get a gravel drive extension put in for the new opening. We have requisitions or purchase orders in place for the individual trades that need to do work in order to get that ready. So we're hoping in the next 3.5 or 4 months to get those individual trades in and out of there and have that work complete. We're working currently on developing order of magnitude costs and services necessary for Crystal Lake Public Health Building Envelope Project, new roof, new vertical and horizontal sealants on the exterior, maybe several door replacement. It's kind of an overall, nothing really, it's the original roof to the building that was a all-state insurance center, I believe. So it can use it. It's performing okay. It's not performing poorly, but it's time to do that work. So we're gonna put together plans and specs. Our typical program is put together plans and specs in 2024, bid late 2024, build 2025. It becomes difficult to try and get that all done in a year just because of the fact that we have to talk about it, then we have to go to resolution, and then we have to write contracts, and then we have to get on somebody's schedule. So we really like to try and get that done the year before we want to do the work. It seems to make sense to bid this time of year rather than spring. Typically, pricing should be a little bit better. So we're working on that. We're also meeting next week with the health department to talk about some plans that they have to spend some effort in renovating the interior spaces on both the nursing side and the animal control side. They have made a request to make some building modifications using ARPA funding. So I'm going to sit down with Melissa and a member of our staff to, again, talk about what this program might look like from a cost perspective. If we move forward, then we engage an architect to try and put some programming, some design bid specs together. We're kicking off a coroner suite and lab renovation project in December, whereas the coroner will renovate some of their office suite area and update their lab to, and cooler freezer area to increase their capacity. I mentioned the administration parking lot, EV parking lot planning for 2024, and we are also designing a new replacement system for the HVAC on this building roof for 2025. And in that, we're looking at different technologies that will, what would the costs be to add new technology so to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the project. So right now, we have 2 large units that supply air with, say, 40 thermostats or so in this building. So they're very, very localized ability to control temperatures in this facility. This is the way it's designed. It comes down, there's a couple of boilers that are 2 years away from replacement or 3 that reheat this air that comes in from these units locally to adjust temperature in the individual spaces. So the technology moving away from gas-fired boilers is heat pump. That's really where the technology is led to. It's the electrification, the conversion of using fossil fuels locally to heat or support internal combustion. So we're going to look at and propose an alternate pricing so that these 2 units on the roof, when we see bidding back, will be the way it is today, bid, what the system as it is, and then with this other technology added, what would the cost difference be? What, if any, electrical savings costs versus natural gas savings costs are there, and what does it mean to our greenhouse gas? So it's likely that the cost for the equipment will be higher, as we know. It's likely that the break-even point for the efficiency gain, converting electricity into BTUs versus natural gas into heat, may not be as cost effective. Natural gas is still a cost effective way to heat. It's just the bottom line is it is. But it doesn't help us on the greenhouse gas emissions. So we want to know what that is. So by doing this as an alternate, the county board can make a decision. Is it worth it here to do or not? And so that's what we'll bring forward with that when we get that project ready to go. And that's it for me.
Go ahead.
Not a question, but a comment. Just if you've ever taken advantage of the opportunities given us by many of our departments, for example, to tour the coroner's office or animal control, you can see some of the limitations that they have with regard to their space. And again, some of the services that they provide and how far behind we've been on some of those upgrades and deferred maintenance. I specifically know animal control. The building was great when they bought it and set it out. It's just, again, something that when you look at, those need to be truly reviewed. So again, just specifically to this committee that hears all of this, I would just say moving forward, if you ever are given that opportunity again, it was eye-opening, enlightening for me when I went through animal control, really. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
See another hand, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep at it, you've got plenty on your plate. Human Resources. She's back.
So I'll start with the one thing that's already typed up on the agenda, but then I'll add all the other stuff. So every year, we get renewal on our insurance rates, and that includes our Medicare supplemental plan. This is a plan that's used by our retirees who are still on our insurance as a retiree. So the Medicare supplemental insurance this year, it went up about 9%, but our broker gave us an option. We could switch over to the Hartford and have a 0%. And we decided to do that, and I wanted to let you know that because I know sometimes retirees may come to you and question, why did they change my insurance? So I wanted to let you know that it's the same coverage. It's just a new carrier. Everybody's covered, whoever's covered under Medicare now, so there's no change there. So there's no impact to the services provided or who they can access. It's just not going to give them an increase this year. So that's why if we switched to the Hartford. So we're putting that out to our retirees so you can respond to them if they come to you. Open enrollment just happened. So we had close to 400 changes this year just in the health insurance portion. We also had a lot of employees take advantage of buying up on their life insurance, their supplemental life insurance. Because we switched providers and it gave us a one-time open enrollment opportunity without an evidence of insurability for employees. So we did have quite a few employees take advantage of that and up their supplemental life insurance. Let's see. Right now we're really heavy into performance reviews. This is the time of year where they do the annual review, which feeds their merit increases if they're non-union. If they're union, they get the step increase that's been negotiated. So right now we're heavy into performance reviews. We do it through the Chronos system. And also doing a lot of, every single person has to have a compensation change. So we're processing all of those. So a lot of performance and compensation management right now is happening in human resources. Let's see. The other things that are kind of in the works I've told you about before and they're advancing are the career development program. We have launched it to the employees. The applications are due by December 1st, which is a brand new program, which is more of an HR supported peer group. We'll take about 30 employees. They'll work together in small groups. They'll support each other as they do some self-assessment of their skills. They'll learn how to effectively seek feedback from peers and from supervisors, and then come up with a career development plan that we can hopefully support them as they go through that process. The goal of that program is to keep the employees here. Again, if they have skills and abilities that we're not tapping into now and they feel like they might serve the county better in another position, we want to work with them and figure out, is that real and how do we support you to do that? The other program that's currently in develop, which we have not launched to employees yet, is a mentorship program. This is something that came out of a couple of our brainstorming groups that we had over the year. That program, we have a committee of, I think, 7 people from different levels of the organization, all the way from Scott in administration to a frontline employee in the assessments office. So we have a nice mix of people who are contributing to the ideas of what would this mentorship program look like, what's its purpose. You'll hear more about that in the very near future, because we're getting close to having that wrapped up. Our wellness program, which we did last year for the first time with a $300 gift card, and it was a splash, and we had great participation, and because we reached a certain level, we got more of an incentive back from our co-op, from our health insurance co-op, so it helped pay for it. And we're about to kick that off again. We're still gonna have the $300 gift card. We have 6 dates in December and 5 dates in January. So again, our goal is to beat what we had last year. So we have a high school curriculum that has been introduced to the schools. We have a group of 14 people who were recently trained on how to deliver that to the schools. What does the curriculum look like, and what are some ideas on delivering it to the schools? I have another group of 5 who couldn't make it to the first training. And we have a couple of schools that we're reaching out to who have expressed some interest. So soon we'll be in some of the schools doing a 2-day class on why not work for the county? Do you know what a county is? How does it work? Who, you know? So that's kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to kicking that off into the schools. The other thing, there's 2 other things. No, 1 other thing, and that is the comp study that we're getting ready to kick off in January. Preliminarily, as I look through all of our positions and start to identify what are the 25 to 30 positions that we're going to say are our core positions that we're going to take out to our comparable communities and say, what do you pay for this? What do you pay for these? What do you pay for these? What I discovered is there were some positions that we needed to fix. So you may see some of those coming before the comp study because they just need to be fixed. And one of those that is our communications staff. So communications has been growing within the county. We now have 6 departments that have some type of communications staff person in it. They all do very similar work. They're all working together with Alicia to evolve and use different equipment and software. They have 5 different titles, and they have 4 different pay grades. So they've each been developed on their own. And now that I'm looking at those, I did put out a survey to those departments saying, what does your person do? Do they supervise? Do they use this software? Do they do press conferences? Do they do press releases? So I asked them, and what education level are you requiring? What experience level are you requiring? And so I did a comparison of those positions, and that's one that we're gonna have to do some fixing on. It's kind of wonky right now. There's a couple of other positions that you're gonna see possibly come forward outside of the comp study. For example, July of last year, the business analysts in the IT department were regraded from a grade 10 to a grade 12. Well, there were some business analysts who do the similar work who were not part of IT that missed that. And so there's a position over in court administration who does the same thing, who didn't get moved when the other business analysts were moved. So you may see a resolution coming through saying, we need to fix that. That should have happened. It was missed. So again, we're starting to work some on getting ready for the compensation study, and in the process of doing that, we're discovering things that need to be tweaked and fixed before that. So you'll see a couple resolutions coming forward. The only other thing I have on here is last year we received the Gold Bell Seal for mental health in the workplace. My goal is to have a platinum this spring. So there's different things that have been, programs that have kind of been tweaked and offered that, again, hopefully we can reach that platinum level for mental health within the workplace. That's it.
Questions?
So the gold bill, that was 2022?
Yes, we got that in January or February of this year, of '23.
Okay, for 2022. Is that right?
We applied, no, it was for this year. So
Okay.
this year we have the gold.
Okay,
My goal is to be platinum next year,
okay.
so which we can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Communication.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Would anybody like a paper copy of my report?
I will. Does it have one on? I am sorry.
As long as you made them, but I did look at it last night.
It's an easy button, thank you.
I have a viral infection. It'll go away. There's a lot of nasty photos.
There really is.
Well, good morning. For the record, my name is Lisa Schuler. I'm the Communications and Project Manager here in County Administration. And got lots of good stuff to report for you today. So, Communications Strategic Plan update. One of the goals in our strategic plan for communications is to reinvigorate the PIO network. So one of the things that we did is at our last meeting, that is monthly for county communicators, we invited some of our counterparts in different municipalities, Mercy Health, and some of the school districts. Couldn't quite get everybody in one room that was virtual at once because of schedule conflicts, but we look forward to expanding that initiative going forward and to work together and learn more together so that we can operate better for the benefit of our residents. We also went to a training put on by DuPage County to learn more about AI and the different ways it impacts communications and can assist or detriment depending on the situation. So we look forward to exploring that issue more as more information becomes available. We have also been collaborating a great deal in the past month. Staff from the Sheriff's Office and County Administration has worked together to put out a joint press release commemorating the 1-year anniversary of the Police Social Work Program. So we're very pleased to see that press release go out. We also performed communications and a press release for the Valley High groundbreaking. And, I'm sure some of you have noticed that you're on the front page of the website. Just saying. Anyhow. That being said, we also put out a press release for EMA as well. Campaigns of note. This one I'm really excited about, more than usual. Operation Greenlight campaign. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for putting out the proclamation affirming your participation in NACO's Operation Greenlight campaign. We have already, thanks to facility staff, put out 2 green lights outside our building to raise awareness that the VAC is in this location and this county supports its veterans and supports them getting the benefits that they've earned through their service to this country. We also put out a press release on the Operation Greenlight campaign. You might also notice that there are green lights inside the building from participating departments that wanted to show their internal support. Let's see. You also might be aware that the city of Woodstock is participating as well. They had a proclamation last night.
Cool.
So I'll move on from here. Oh, and the videos. We also did 2 videos in collaboration with the VAC, encouraging events and raising awareness of veteran issues. So you can see that one on the website too, and on our social media channels. So follower growth and reach. All of our channels continue to grow in followers. Reach compared to last month increased on Twitter and LinkedIn compared to the month of September. Facebook and Instagram didn't quite keep up. But we'll keep on pushing on those. You can see a list of the different top 3 posts by reach and engagement. And you might notice that somebody in this room who happens to be a county coordinator had one of our top posts. So just had to toss that one out there for Shaylin. Any questions, concerns, ideas?
What is PIO? What's that acronym?
I'm sorry, Public Information Officer.
Okay, thank you.
I Googled it. I Googled it and wrote it to myself.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll hand it off to the county administrator.
Thank you. Hey, I've really learned a lot today. We've had some awesome presentations from Scott and Adam and Shaylin and Tom and Cheryl and Alicia. So thank you, everybody. Doing a great job. I appreciate you allowing me to participate remotely. I'm visiting my aging parents down in Florida, and it's just kind of a priority of my wife and I to get down here pretty regularly. I do have a couple things I want to point out. We were really excited last month to have Kevin Boyso come back to our department head meeting. And Kevin came back in his new role as CFO for the RTA to talk about a recent ransomware attack that the RTA endured and paid out through their cyber insurance company. But Kevin was good to remind us all that all these authentication processes that IT puts us through really do have value in protecting the data that we are charged with protecting. So that was nice to see Kevin. Also, last month, we had our kickoff meeting for the Woodstock Rail Yard project that you may remember that the RTA has engaged a third-party firm to do what's called the NEPA process to make sure that the site that we're going to be acquiring with Metra in Woodstock is the right site. So it was good to finally get that going, and it's also good to hear that this is going to happen pretty fast. They're going to have a recommendation by the summer. There's going to be an open house in February and then a follow-up open house in July. And that second open house, they're going to have a recommendation. So that's good to know. Tom mentioned our Public Safety Training Center is opened up, and we're having our ribbon cutting later this week. We are having our department head meeting there next Friday. So a week from Friday, all of our department heads and elected officials are going to gather down there at 8:30 to kind of do our monthly meeting down there. So that'll be fun. The Stormwater Management Committee met last month for the first time in about 2 years, and they were able to get all of the mayors in the room at one time, so they were able to change the bylaws so they can meet a little bit more efficiently in the future. So that was, it sounds like a small thing, but it really was a Herculean accomplishment to get everybody together. One of the discussions that stemmed out of having all those mayors in the room was that they would be interested in having a virtual presentation on the 2050 land use plan. So Shaylin is hosting a virtual presentation to all the mayors next Thursday, I think, Shaylin, the 16th. Yep. You're doing that. So if anybody wants to jump on that, let Shaylin know and she'll send you the invite. But it's going to be principally the audience is the mayors. Not yesterday, Monday afternoon, Scott Hartman and I met with Connie Machini and Leonardo Rizzi and their attorneys at Zukowski, Rogers, Flood, and McCardle to talk about the possibility of a mental health sales tax and the important decision as to when that referendum question would be asked, whether that's March or November. They're not certain yet what their request is going to be. Ultimately, it's the board's decision. But Scott and I, along with the attorneys, are going to be present at their next meeting, which I think is November 28th at 6 p.m. So I think there's going to be several county board members that are interested in that one. But we'll be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of March versus November and what it means in terms of revenue. The last thing I will mention is last week, the Law and Government Committee passed an IGA with Lake County to potentially house some of their inmates. It was not pulled from the agenda, so there wasn't much discussion. It is on the agenda for finance tomorrow. Lake County has not moved on this as rapidly as we thought, so it may get tabled at Finance Committee tomorrow. I'm not sure how the committee wants to play that, but it is an interesting opportunity for some additional revenue. It's an unknown amount of money. It would be for, we think, a 1 year period of time. The Lake County chairwoman left the country and at the end of last month and said she had too many questions, so she was going to push this off till December. So it won't be voted on in Lake County until December. And for that reason, the Finance Committee may opt to table this tomorrow. We'll see how that discussion goes. That's all I got. Any questions or anything?
Peter, please tell whoever's working on the referendum, if it's on November, you might as well not waste our time. Because it will not pass in November.
Right. We had this conversation at, what committee? Public Health. And I think that was the consensus as well.
Yeah, the November ballot would delay the revenue by a full year.
Well, forget delay
because of the timing of
it won't pass.
That's with the assumption that it passes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. I'll pass that along, Joe.
Appreciate it. Any other future topics? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn? By Terry, seconded by Pam. All those in favor say aye.
Okay.
We are